things that worked really, really well in the game were changed, and things that maybe didn't connect with people were left, and it's changing the character of Ellie in a way that I don't think will pay off in future seasons.
This season of TV felt like once we got that flashback episode, we never really thought about Joel again. None of the characters were still feeling his death, and I think that suffered because of it.
Welcome back to the Breakroom. Ooh, The Last of Us Season 2 finale aired over the weekend. And we definitely have thoughts, we definitely have opinions, and I'm so glad to not be alone. I'm John Costa. Joining me today, he used to be Zach, but now he's HBO Zach. It's Zach Huddleston.
I'm gonna be a daddy.
She's the best part of the show. It's Gina Ippolito.
Hey, you're doing great. Is it out? Is it out? You're doing great.
Is it out?
Saddest part.
Is it out?
That's what she said.
Is it out? You're doing great.
NerdRiot.shop. Guys, this is the thinnest script I've ever written in my entire life. Ah! Brian's gonna have to do some heavy lifting on the cut for this one. If you're becoming more and more empathetic to the WLF, grab a WLF hat, and it'll arrive in time for season 3 of the show. It'll arrive way sooner than season 3.
At least they hinted them doing agriculture. Isn't that so refreshing from not just being a paramilitary group?
All they're trying to do is rid the Seattle area of this cult that has little boys telling people to kill a girl while she's strung up.
What if it comes full circle and it's really the WLF? They just care about corn, our boy back in Jackson,
Kevin or whatever his name was.
Yeah, I feel like I could handle this. If the WLF was like trying to recruit me, I'd be like, can I like not shoot? Can I just farm?
Yes.
Is that an option? And they would be like, yeah, sure, you don't have to shoot.
Can I work the land?
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? And then there are probably those psychopaths who are like, I just want to go kill little kids.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Unfortunately, in the
too much
apocalypse,
work.
we do have a role for you.
Yeah.
Also, seems like Isaac maybe leaning to, actually, we don't know.
I appreciate that Isaac, and we'll get into maybe more of this later, I appreciate that Isaac was sort of like, I'm going to die today.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the times you see these, like, charismatic leaders or whatever you want to call Isaac being like, you guys fight. I have to make decisions. I'm going to stay here.
Well, also, like, I feel like in shows like this, sometimes people will be like, I am not dying today, not here, boom.
I mean, Jesse did that.
Yeah.
Spoilers for this episode.
Let's get into it.
Spoilers for this episode. All right, the episode begins with Dina and Jesse in the theater. Dina is sort of like pulling the arrow that the Seraphites shot. Jesse's helping her with that arrow. And I bring this up to mention, this is kind of when Jesse becomes wise to the fact that Dina is pregnant. He offers her this flask.
Yeah.
She refuses it like very intensely. And, raises his little eyebrows.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that he's savvy to this, though.
Yeah.
Because it drives me crazy in shows where it's like, clearly this person is pregnant. Why has no one noticed?
And we've all been in that moment, too. I remember me and my cousin and his wife went out to lunch once, and they didn't order any alcohol. And I was like...
Anytime
when we get together, we booze.
Anytime an adult woman suspiciously doesn't order alcohol.
She was pregnant.
Movies and shows have taught us. Though, as Eric rightly points out in the breakdown, it is actually not women are allowed to have a drink.
This is right.
It's just the point is they were supposed to stop shortly after one drink. So she could have. Also, I don't know that any of the pregnancy recommendations take into account having an arrow in your leg. So,
absolutely. Or the apocalypse.
There's presumably no sex ed. I mean, I know like they get some education here, but like, is sex ed a thing where they're like, hey, here's exactly how you...
Children are getting made. Jackson has children, right?
I mean, I'm sure they teach them the basics, but they're probably just like, hey, it's the apocalypse. Like, we don't have the resources for you to be getting smashed with alcohol when you're preggo, so just don't. I think that's probably how the health teachers in the apocalypse.
Avoid. I mean, and that's kind of how we're taught. Is don't do this thing because the dummies will take it too far.
Right.
So Ellie comes back from her mysterious gallivant. No one still knows where she was. She was over in the hospital, shaking down. Her name escapes me at this point. Nora, thank you so much.
And somehow Ellie acquired a lot of back scratches.
Yeah. We were going back and forth in the office about what those were from. I think it's just to be like, hey, we did 2 big time jumps where Ellie was going to have to get from one location to another challenge, and it would be challenging.
I mean, I think she's doing a lot of like rolling.
There's a lot of fences she's got to scoot on there.
She's
For
scooting
sure.
under. She's falling into elevator shafts.
For sure. But then her and Dina have this like conversation where, a lot of people were, I think, aggravated in previous weeks. I guess now we're picking up from where episode 5 left off, since episode 6 was so flashback heavy. There was this like in the video game, Ellie never really knows who Abby is or why she's coming after Joel and coming after. She doesn't realize that her dad is the doctor and all this kind of stuff, right? And so, but Nora really clearly spells that out in the end of episode 5. She's like, "Hey, do you know who this person is?" and kind of spills the tea there. So then Ellie comes back and has that conversation with Dina, and they kind of decide like it's not worth it. We're gonna go home. Right? I mean, with the totality of everything we learned in this season, that there's a lot more people here than we thought. This is a war zone, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think doesn't that happen in the game too? But really, Ellie has no intention of going home.
Yeah, that element is definitely still there, especially when Jesse and Tommy are there and they find out that Dina's pregnant. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think seeing a pregnant girl shot in the leg with an arrow
it's like
might
time
be
to go
like,
home.
oh, okay,
For
well, we got a safe place to go to. Why don't we just do that?
Then Jesse and Ellie need to go find Tommy. There's like a recon point at this library, this perfectly kind of themed location that they're gonna have to go to with all these children's books.
Yeah.
So they go after Tommy.
Would you have rather had them in an abandoned Rite Aid?
Hey, it's a good point. I wanted to see the inside of that Costco. And this is like where Jesse sort of gets to have his moment for this show, because we don't see much of Jesse in this show.
I think he's got a couple of good moments.
He does.
Like a couple of like, oh, this guy's smart.
Yeah, which can't be said for some of the other characters that have been on the show. But he kind of, lays into Ellie a little bit. First of all, he gets confirmation that Dina is pregnant. But throughout their conversations, they have a few of them in this episode in different locations. Jesse's makes a point to tell Ellie about how selfish she's being, and really kind of goes after her.
He cares
Not
about
undeservedly.
He cares about the collective, the community, where revenge is inherently a selfish pursuit. I think, like, if there's a flaw here, Jesse is such a white bread good guy figure here. Of course, he has no selfish things. He only wants what's best for everyone. I mean, I would have loved just like some shades there. Also, he's incredibly cool with, I mean, again, she's not that pregnant. So he's had sex with Dina in the very recent past. Okay, she's already moved on to Ellie. I would have loved to have explored that a little bit more. I don't think you're gonna be so cool.
Well, I do appreciate that they gave it a little bit of backstory, because I was thinking the same thing, like, man, he's like remarkably like, yeah, I don't care. You stole my girlfriend once, you stole her a second time, she's pregnant now, you think you're gonna be the dad, but really I'm the biological dad. Like the fact that he's like, hey, I get it. There's another chick that I wish I was with too, instead of Dina. Like, so he kind of does get it. And also like pickings are slim in the apocalypse, right? So maybe it's not even like.
No, everybody on this show is gorgeous.
Yeah, everyone's hot.
No, but there's not
It's
multiple
sevens and up
people.
after the
But like,
apocalypse.
how many people in
Seth
the
is
same
available,
age
guys.
group are like available for him? And he was like, hey, I met a girl like on the road that I liked, but she like couldn't leave her people to be with me. So my heart's not really in this. That was like a bang buddy.
Wish, he's like frustrated right when he meets her because like they've had to cross the country and risk their lives for, to save Ellie and all this kind of stuff. And like, I just might have liked a little bit more of that energy to stick around and to color Jesse's character in more ways than just, well, he's the ultimate good guy, which is just so priming us to have him be killed untimely.
Well, should be more pissed off. I mean, she basically, because of her, the community's two best fighters now are, I mean, maybe not best fighters, but like, Tommy and Jesse are the ones that like train other people.
I mean,
Right, Jesse's next in line to become the Maria.
Tommy's not that great. You got the slip put on him pretty easy.
That is true.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, I think the game presents the relationship between Jesse and Dina as way more casual than the show does. The show has this kind of like 5 or 4 month time gap between Joel's death and them leaving for Seattle, and that's the period in which Jesse and Dina hook up again. That doesn't exist in the show. It seems like, I'm sorry, other way around. That doesn't exist in the game. So it seems like the show is putting a heavier emphasis on their pre-existing relationship, whereas in the game, Jesse sees Dina and Ellie hook up, and then the next morning, Ellie and Jesse need to go on patrol together, and Jesse's like kind of cool about it. It seems like they had maybe had a mutual breakup or something like that, and we do get that scene in the game.
He's like not cool, bro.
Yeah,
like he's so casual
and he's like totally kind of messing with Ellie in that moment. But it does feel a lot more serious in this game. He's talking about how he wants to be a father. My question is, who's asked Dina? Does Dina want either of these people to be, a father figure in this kid's life? I don't know. Let's talk to her.
Hey, it takes a village.
It takes a village.
Community, if you will.
For sure. What did you guys think of Jesse, kind of blatantly calling Ellie selfish?
She is very clearly selfish, right? Like, I mean, she's out there. She didn't know immediately that Dina was pregnant, but this is all the community voted and said, like, no, this is not worth it. We can't spare these resources. And then she took her like best friend / lover with her to be like, hey, let's do we're gonna do this on our own. Found out she was pregnant, and then like realized like Jesse and Tommy are out there, and she's still hunting down.
Even after all these conversations, she makes more selfish choices.
I think
clearly, she got it from her daddy. Joel did the same thing.
That's what I mean. Joel made a very selfish decision to save Ellie and kill all of those people in Salt Lake City. And the drum that Ellie has been beating this whole time is, I wanted to be sacrificed. I was okay with that decision. That is a very selfless place to be. I'm okay with my own death to save other people. So I feel like the themes in this episode or whatever, I don't disagree that she's doing some things that are selfish, and revenge is very selfish. But like, her mission statement is one of selflessness.
I don't think, here's the thing, she wouldn't, if she hadn't involved anyone else, if she legitimately had gone off on her own.
Which was her plan.
It was her plan, but then she also could have, as soon as Dina was there, she could have been like, nah, let's go back to the community. Like, I was prepared to die, but like, I'm not prepared for you to die. And she doesn't every step of the way. And then she even gets more chances throughout this to be, like Jesse's like, I didn't vote for you. I'm not going with you. And she's like, yeah, all right. And then because of her, Jesse dies. Like, that is a direct correlation to like Jesse went out there to find these two.
Not something that Ellie asked for.
But it doesn't matter. She knew what she was doing. Like, she knew.
I just think it feels unfair to me that all of these people are like, I'm coming to your aid, but you're being selfish.
No, but she chooses time and time again to pursue this revenge.
But that's a personal, singular choice.
And I think it's fair not to put other people's deaths on Ellie, because, what does Jesse even say? I came for you because I knew you would have come for me.
Which is a very, also, that line is interesting, because that's something that other people have complained throughout this show, is that, Ellie hasn't been the one that is, as bloodthirsty as, for example, Dina or something like that, right? Like, Dina has been a little bit more fuck these guys, we're going to kill these people, rather than Ellie in this season. And so I thought it was interesting that, Jesse does say that.
Maybe verbally, but all of Ellie's actions, again, anytime she's on a little side quest and there's an opportunity to go after Abby, she risks life and limb to go do it. LA, can have crazy weather. We get June gloom and, lots of rain sometimes in the winter, spring areas. And anytime there's crazy weather, it's always nice to have some Vessi shoes. They are waterproof sneakers, and that's what makes Vessi special. Having a pair of Vessis means you can still walk the dog, go get coffee, run into the office, do whatever else you need to without having to lug around a pair of backup shoes or some rain boots or any kind of other accoutrement. Your normal shoes are waterproof. Every pair of Vessis are lightweight, weatherproof, and durable enough that you can wear them every day without worrying about wearing them out. Lately, I've been rocking the weekend sneaker, though I wear it on weekdays, believe it or not. I got to check the terms of service and see if they're still applicable on a Tuesday. But there's zero compromise with a pair of Vessis. They're the best looking sneakers I own, and somehow the most functional ones too. Make every day a little easier. Visit Vessi.com/breakroom. There it is on the screen. Now for 15% off your first order at checkout and start exploring with confidence. Thank you, Vessi. Can we zoom out here?
Whoa.
I guess we've already kind of touched on all the major plot points with the one exception of
Yeah, we
aquarium.
There's a couple things to talk about, but yeah.
And a little bit of the whole Seraphites versus WLF island battle and all of those kind of like side quests. Some nice capsizing work, which we saw in the behind the scenes. That was practical. They had a water tank. There was both some ocean photography, some water tank photography, and they built her like a, they even call it a dragon rider, like they use in Game of Thrones, but like a boat that she rides. Like,
I wonder if it's built on the same platform or whatever.
Yeah, and I think
found another bar.
They just go to a Western themed bar and steal their bowl. But besides all that, like big picture, and I believe the thumbnail and title of this video will be "What Went Wrong." So let's cut to it. The chatter in the office, and I think like a decent amount of the online chatter, has been fairly negative about this show. Now I have
about the finale.
About the finale, some disappointments, and I'll let maybe both of you kind of share your thoughts in that regard. I will say, as someone who did not love this entire season, I was pretty critical of like some earlier episodes. I enjoyed this finale. It had not been spoiled. I have not played the game. I did not know the plot. I did not know any of the events that were going to take place in this episode. I kind of enjoyed it only in that I think the show is at its best when characters are being active. I like that. The entire Mel, Owen, Ellie scene I found gripping, surprising, so tragic and moving how that ended. I was incredibly moved. And like maybe I am blinded a little bit to the quality of the entire episode because a few highlights from the episode I thought were so good that maybe like I was willing to forgive other flaws. And again, I had no expectations of what the game plot is and the changes that have been made and other things like that. But I really enjoyed the episode. I even thought like the cliffhanger kind of CTs of the ending, I didn't mind it in that like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And like, okay, now I'm gonna have to wait for the answers here, but they've given me enough to keep me intrigued. But I'll stop there as somebody who might be the most positive on the panel for the episode.
Well, it's difficult because and this is with all media criticism, like, how do you separate yourself from an experience that you had, whether it be reading a book or playing a game or watching an episode of TV that then gets adapted to a movie?
Yes.
How do you separate the experience that you had doing that for the first time and something that's new and different? And I think that the creators of the show and any piece of media should have license to change things, to better adapt them for the medium or, to not fix things, but change things that maybe didn't land as well in the source material, what have you, right? And so I think, and I think this is true of myself, I think this is true of most people, you're almost always going to be more attached to the thing that you originated with, right? It's pretty rare to be like, oh, I loved this thing, and then the adaptation came out and I liked that more. That's pretty rare.
Very rare.
So I say all of that to say like, many of my criticisms may be coming from that point of view.
And the more you love the source material, the more likely you are to be disappointed by the adaptation.
Yes. Absolutely. That being said, right, I think like there's a lot of frustration because things that worked really, really well in the game were changed and things that maybe didn't connect with people were left. Or, you have this moment of this like cliffhanger, and I don't really want to speak more about it, but like, there are a number of people who played the games that are looking at that cliffhanger and being like, that's fucked up. And so, it's a little hard, it's especially hard to do the show and try not to spoil people and all that kind of stuff. But I thought the ending was, a little disappointing and something that like bumped me with Defying Gravity in Wicked. Wicked is like a movie that I really loved, and Wicked is a show that I really love, and that was a really good adaptation in my opinion. But for Defying Gravity, and I know people share this opinion, I know people disagree with me, I felt like they took something that they knew was really important to nail, and they thought about it way too hard, and they added a bunch of dumb shit, and it didn't work, and they sort of like overwrote it. That's how I felt about Defying Gravity in that movie.
Wow. Did you expect a wicked hard take
talk
in the middle of our after show?
I felt very similarly about the Owen, Mel, Ellie scene. I felt like there was some stuff that they added in that scene that they didn't need to add, and it's changing the character character of Ellie in a way that I don't think will pay off in future seasons. Ellie is shown through a very empathetic lens in this episode and in this season, when in the game, and you know, I don't know if this is like a likable characters discussion. Gina and I could get into that conversation. Who fucking cares if your character's likable? I think that they were worried that people are not going to like her, and they toned her down and they made her care more about these people. And I think it's more interesting to watch the story of Ellie when she doesn't give a fuck about anyone but killing Abby. And so seeing her, like, you know, have that moment with Mel, you know, that's probably how like a human being would react to that circumstance. I get it. But like at the point in which we were with Ellie in the game, she does have a visceral reaction to that happening, especially when she finds out that Mel is pregnant. But it isn't as like sad. It's more of like guilt in the game, right? Sure. And this, it was like, oh, Mel got hit with a grazing bullet and then died, and like, oops, I didn't do that on purpose.
Well, but I think in Bella Ramsey's performance in the Ellie, like, that character's devastated. We haven't seen that character weep like that since Joel died, right? Like, clearly, like a very, I mean, just, and it's as much on the Mel actress who gave this like incredible performance,
very good performance,
very limited lines and almost like no like movement, but like to deliver these like heavily weighted things and like to immediately just get down to business. I mean, it's such a powerful scene in multiple ways. I understand it maybe didn't work for you because of the other things going on.
But it's very interesting. You trade in this scene that is on its face very emotional, very sad, incredibly well acted, well written, all this kind of stuff. When you peel it back a little bit, you have to sit there and say like, oh, this is in my opinion a betrayal of the character from Ellie.
You want Ellie a little nastier.
When I saw Caitlin Deaver as Abby come in and be like, bop, 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 I fucking hate all of you. I'm like, that's what I want from Abby.
And you wasted it.
And they're supposed to be kind of two sides of the same coin. And right now I think Ellie is like still kind of sweet.
But Ellie had that moment whacking Nora in the basement with
give
the
me more
pipe.
Of that. Give me more of that.
Yeah.
She had that monologue in this episode where she was like, and I didn't really feel bad. Oh, I want more of that. So, anyways, I think those are a lot of the criticisms that people have for this season too, is that Ellie's character isn't as ruthless maybe as you would have hoped. But it's interesting, I've talked a lot now, that you guys don't agree with that take, because you can tell a similar story in different ways and have different characters be portrayed differently.
Yeah, I wonder if, so I did not play the second game. I played the first game. The second game came out like middle of the pandemic. I distinctly remember like my dad had just been diagnosed with leukemia and someone telling me like, hey, you maybe shouldn't play this game.
It's gonna hurt.
And I was like, yeah, with everything else like going on, I don't want to play something that is going to be a bummer. Like I want to watch Ted Lasso and I want to play Animal Crossing. Like that's where I was when the second game came out, playing Animal Crossing. But I do wonder how much of this is like people who played the video game and got used to one thing, because I, like Zach, did not mind this episode. Totally. I think for the season, you know, coming at it from a writer perspective, it did suffer from the writer's strike. I think that they should have gotten a longer episode order. I think that especially in a season that hinges on character development, one of the main complaints that I've seen is that like Ellie didn't have enough character development this season, and they maybe gave some of her real estate to, you know, like Isaac and the Wolves and the Seraphites. Yeah. I actually think like, you know, especially knowing that next season is going to be Abby's season, and I get that Craig Mazin wanted to adhere to the game of like at some point you switch to her perspective and play as her. I actually think like this should have shown simultaneously what's happening with Ellie and what's happening with Abby. I think just from a writer perspective, because when that whole scene with Mel and Owen happened, I was like, who are these people again? Didn't we've seen like them for maybe a total of 3 minutes of screen time? And while it is devastating to see, you know, a pregnant woman saying like, cut me open, do it, you can do it, like that character doesn't resonate with me. And if next season is going to be like, here's who she was, here's why she was special, she selflessly helped people as a medic, whatever, show that to us this season. Like show us, then we can get scenes intercut with like Ellie and what's going on and how she went down this path to the dark side, but also humanize these other characters to a point where we actually care about them and care about their deaths and know where they're coming from. I understand that is that they did it like the video games, but I don't think that they need to keep so strictly adhering to the video games.
It is interesting to like show us character deaths before we've spent time with the characters for the most part, and then go back. I mean, that's what they did that with Joel this season. Obviously, we saw him die in episode 2. Then we revisited him in episode 6. But yeah, we already were very aware of him and invested in his character and everything like that. Yeah, it is interesting. And whatever, it's hard for us to judge season 3. It hasn't even come out. I kind of proposed a couple hypotheticals to you guys before we started airing, and John wisely said, let's not answer these till cameras are on. Yeah. Is this season better received as a binge drop? Or even micro binge like Andor, right? Like if we get the whole first half and then the whole second half the next week or something like that. Do you think it's, because I found, both because of like tonal shifts and point of view shifts and, flashback, episode to episode, I found my enjoyment of this series varying quite a bit.
I actually am going to take the opposite perspective. I think a binge drop would have highlighted the problems more than fixed them. I think if the main problem is like, oh, there's not enough character development, I think watching them all at once, you're going to be like, whoa, that leap happened so fast for Ellie. Yeah. Whereas I think, like, again, I think a weekly release but a longer episode order. And again, there was a writer's strike. I think that's why they could not do that. But I think that would have helped it. I think if it had been 12 or 15 episodes and you're sort of slowly seeing Ellie's descent into this, that to me works better than like, here, watch it all at once. Because then I would have been like, man, I did not buy that flip at all.
Even season 1 was 9 episodes. Is that right? Does that sound familiar?
Something like that.
9, even 2 more episodes. That's a feature-length film we could have spent with some of these characters.
Can I make a second proposal?
Yeah.
I think there's some fixes that a binge drop fixes, and there's others that it creates, right? Yeah. To Gina's point, what if we just got a 13-episode or a 15-episode season of TV next year? And it is
a mega. We get the whole Abby and the whole Ellie.
The whole Seattle.
You mean how TV works since the advent of TV?
We do the whole stuff. Because I empathize with the writers and the producers and all this kind of stuff because you have source material and you need to find where the season break happens. Mm-hmm. And so if you do a mixture of their POVs and you only do 7 episodes, 10 episodes, whatever it is, like where do you break the season? Do you, like that's a hard, is it after the TV station stuff? I don't know.
A 10-episode season where maybe we get a little less Jackson at the front end, but first 5 episodes, Ellie, this ending of this episode happens, and then the back half is Abby. But it's all one season, so any frustration you might feel, because we were talking about how much of people's frustration with this finale, if they have, and maybe you all enjoyed it kind of like I did, or maybe you're frustrated, is because we know, like, oh, great, it's going to be 2028 before we see the Abby season, right?
And I understand, like, I think inherently this show sort of has to end on a cliffhanger. The game kind of does something similar. But, like, to leave it on a cliffhanger and then be like, see you in 2.5 years, that's hard. And again, that's not necessarily, who knows how fast this will happen. They have all of the sets already built for season 2 that they may need for, I mean, not all of them, but you know what I mean.
They don't have to wait on Pedro Pascal's schedule anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they are able to get this out at the end of next year or something like that. But they haven't started principal photography for this season yet. So I don't have a huge amount of faith in that happening. That being said, Game of Thrones was a massive HBO show, and for a while they were trying to get that out on a yearly cadence. It fell apart a little bit toward the end there, but HBO is really capable.
Yeah.
Make TV like it used to be.
That's right. Put a big room together, Craig. Put a fucking room together. Yeah. You don't have to write every single episode.
Yeah, you really don't. You should hire other writers that are not just the 2 video game writers.
Speaking of which, can we get into maybe the valid criticism of this finale that I agree with?
Oh, what's that?
The dialogue.
Okay.
You think a little stiff, or?
Yeah, I think like a lot of a lot of Jesse, Ellie, kind of two-hander scenes in this. Dina doesn't have quite as much to say. Other characters.
Who is maybe the best, Isabella Merced seems to be doing the best with the dialogue on this show this season, apart from maybe Catherine O'Hara, who's killing it.
Charismatic, and other people in briefer stints, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they clearly gave Jesse a lot because he was dying.
Yes.
Like they clearly were like, hey, let's put this guy, let's give him a lot of thoughtful, nice guy dialogue so that at the end you care that he dies.
I just didn't think it was great dialogue. It was functional, advanced the plot, again, established he's a good guy, but didn't color him in any kind of, even his like tale of past romance is the most boring hookup story I've ever heard.
Go to Mexico, have fun.
You know what I mean? Get something a little bit more specific in there.
I will say that, like, I think that we all sort of have moments of like, oh, this bit of dialogue was great from this show. The sort of like, what is grief if not love persevering? And this season didn't really have any of that for me. And for a writer as acclaimed as Craig Mazin, for it to go an entire season without like a really memorable line that everyone is.
This show overlapping with Andor season 2.
Isn't that a shot?
Goddamn episode.
Obviously,
we're all out of perfect.
Right.
Is there a single line in this show?
If you look at these two shows, Andor season 1, great season of television. But The Last of Us season 1, also a great season of television. Who would have thought that you would have been like, Andor kicks the shit out of The Last of Us?
Yeah. Andor season 2 is great, and you're right that there are so many. Like, you can't keep track of how many memorable lines are.
Yes.
And looking back on this season, I'm trying to think, like, was there a moment?
I mean, Isaac's had some interesting monologues.
Yeah.
There's been some stuff that's
that
pretty
is
good.
true. I guess, like, and like, anything that Pedro, like they were clearly trying to make I hope you do a little bit better than I did. They were trying to make that the what is grief if not love.
And that comes close. I will say it's tough. I was kind of talking. We were chatting beforehand. Like, it's also just the world that this show is built. There's not a lot of eloquent characters. There's not a lot of characters that go on like beautiful monologues, like so many characters in Andor do or whatever. They don't express them. They express themselves with guns and like machetes and fist fights and stuff like that, which is cool and is very different.
To be that way.
Yeah, but it's like it makes it for engaging TV. Again, the action set pieces and choreography and the way CGI and things like that are with practical stunts are melded in the show. Like, we probably don't give that enough credit for how like visually captivating this show can be. A lot of the time with the completely fabricated worlds and creatures and stuff like that. But like maybe it does lack. Just even like the Penguin series had some lines, some monologues that were all-timer. One of our sponsors this week is HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. HelloFresh makes it easier to fit quick, home-cooked meals into your schedule every week by curating delicious recipes like pasta primavera, chicken Dijon, and pecan-crusted trout, as well as over 100 seasonal snacks, sides, and treats. HelloFresh has meal options to fit every lifestyle without compromising on taste, health, or homemade quality. Their ready-made meals offer chef-crafted, flavorful dishes that are ready in just 3 minutes. So you can dig in and get outside, get work done, or just have some me time. Get a bubble bath a brewing, you know what I mean? One of our favorites at the Breakroom is the Southwest-style chicken bowl. We're big old Southwest-style chicken bowl fans over here. The chicken is super moist, do you like that word? And flavorful, and has just the right amount of kick. It's seriously restaurant quality, but waiting for me at home and ready whenever I want it. Every HelloFresh meal uses high-quality ingredients, including seasonal fresh produce and proteins that travel from farm to your doorstep, plus flexible deliveries that you can pause or skip when you need. Feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/breakroom10FM now to get 10 free meals with a free item for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. Thanks again to HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, for sponsoring our show.
That is one of the problems that I thought of when I was watching this finale. Was like, this show and the game, it asks you to make only one sort of like leap of logic, which is like, what if this zombie outbreak had taken place? Everything else, the show is like, this is the most grounded shit you've ever watched in your entire fucking life. And I feel like in this season, they've like made some weird dialogue or done some weird character choices or whatever, where you're like, I don't know if you would have done that if this was actually happening.
Yes.
And I'm trying to remember what bumped me and what made me think that while I was watching the episode.
Because they want it to be grounded and realistic in the sense that these people don't deliver
what it was.
Shakespeare-level monologues.
Right.
But you know what's also not grounded and realistic? You know, like, hey, I need to give you some of this exposition right now because your character needs to know this stuff. That's also not how people talk.
And what really bumped me was there's this scene when Ellie is on the boat going out to the aquarium, and the wave, she gets hit by the wave, she gets dragged into the forest by the Seraphites, and then they hear these booms going off in the background, and the woman says to the rest of them, leave her.
Yes.
And it's like, if you are a Seraphite and you think this is a wolf, and you've got a sickle that you can
literally knives out already.
Right? Like, if you think that she's a wolf and you're gonna leave her and then run off somewhere, don't you think that in the back of your head, she's gonna now shoot you or whatever as you're fleeing? Kill her immediately and then go take care of business. So like, it's decisions like that that really kind of pull me out of this show.
And even I felt similarly when Jesse and Ellie are hiding behind the dumpster and the wolves come and they have the Seraphite kid and she wants to jump out and save them. And later he was like, you know, there were 6 of them. Even while watching, I'd be like, what the hell are you gonna do? 6 guys with machine guns? Why are you, and you don't even know this person that they're trying to save? That didn't make any sense even for Ellie's character in that moment.
I do think that moment was to like pay off later when she like begs the little kid to save her and he's like, get.
But it is like also, I totally agree, and 100% why both of those scenes were written, which is so funny.
Which can I just say quickly, I think that this is maybe, for all of his like good points, I think that this is maybe one of Craig Mazin's like downfalls, is that he wants everything to pay off. To sometimes to the detriment of the writing. Like there can never just be a moment. It's like, oh, this moment foreshadows this.
I agree.
This moment informs this. And like, yes, that does make for some good writing some of the time, but not every single
and maybe when it's not working and it
to.
feels a little forced, we were talking about like we needed to have 2 love triangles involving a pregnant woman on both sides of the Abbey, Ellie. It's like
they're the same.
And I think to your point, like some of the worst writing on this show is because of that, right? Like Ellie's big outburst of "I'm gonna be a dad" was because in the next episode there was the Joel, "I wish you could," it's like, oh, you wrote this bad line of dialogue in
just
so that you could pay it off in the next episode.
And again, I think the show is at its best when it's characters expressing their wants and their feelings through action, right? And like, that's one reason, like, we were also invested in the Joel character. He did not say a whole lot, right? Like, not a lot of famous Joel monologues. He showed through action how he felt, and even through his like little micro expressions and stuff like that. So, and then when he would speak, it would convey such a weight, right? Like the coffee scene with Ellie is so powerful because that's not a character that talks about his feelings very much, right? But then I think like some of the failures of the show are when other characters finally do kind of talk about their feelings and it doesn't work like that.
I remember like reading something from Brian Cox about how he'd been killed off much earlier than expected in Succession. And he was like, that show's gonna be, he was being very Brian Cox about it. Like that show's gonna be nothing without me. But if you watch to the end, it's still just as good. Because his weight is still so felt that every single one of these characters has been so damaged by Brian Cox that like the rest of their rest of their life, yes. But like the patriarch of this family, that for the rest of, and every actor on that show was so good that you see like their wounds for the rest, and the writing was so good. And I think in this show, we get that great flashback episode where it's like, oh, this is what's motivating Ellie. And then I didn't see it. I didn't see it in her. I didn't see his presence in her, which might be about like how like she wasn't as brutal and she wasn't as pissed and she wasn't as this. But like on Succession, you feel that loss for the rest of the season. This season of TV felt like once we got that flashback episode, we never really thought about Joel again. None of the characters were still feeling his death. And I think that suffered because of it, because if we see Ellie still not having come to terms with his death and being so like pissed and heartbroken in how he died and how much he sacrificed for her, and if she had pulled that off I think Bella Ramsey's a great actor. I think they were the best, some of the best parts of Game of Thrones. I just don't think that what they were given sort of conveyed that writing-wise, acting-wise, it wasn't where Succession was when this larger-than-life character died.
Yeah, and the show gives us a device for that, right? In episode 2, I think it is in episode 2, when Ellie wakes up in the makeshift hospital or whatever, she's having like night terrors about seeing Joel's face again, right?
Right.
And they never go back to that. And I'm not saying they need to go back to that exactly, but like giving Ellie night terrors about Joel's death could help the viewer, understand why she's making selfless or selfish decisions and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, even her sort of being like, I'm going to be a dad and like showing this excitement. I just don't, I think that I think that if she had witnessed her father die in this like terrible way, or her father figure die in this terrible way, I think that would haunt her for a while. And I'm not saying that she has to like mope around the rest of the season, but she's having so many light moments with Dina and things like that. And it just, you don't feel that both of these women have lost a hugely important character in their lives
and
just a few days before.
Agreed. And I agree with I think Bella Ramsey was part of some of the best scenes and the best acting in the show, and also some of the worst scenes. And I think, I think like, if you're going to give them credit for good stuff, you know what I mean? You also have to give them credit for the bad, or don't give them credit for anything and blame the writing and the direction as well, right? Like, and I think like, to me, beyond like pacing and what was included and what was not in the episode order, like their relationship, and this continued through this finale, just was like a nothing burger for me. I never really believed it. I never like saw the characters behaving in ways that like I could
started
understand.
out by being like, I like this, let's defend it, and then now we're like fully on jump.
And that's more my criticism of the season.
No,
and I think by far the episode I liked
didn't dislike
the
it as
least.
much.
Was it episode 4 that was the two-hander? That was Ellie and Dina going to Seattle, or was that episode 3?
Probably episode 3, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was by far the worst episode of the season. But anyways, what are the folks saying at home?
Yeah.
Apparently the YouTube chat is getting kind of saucy, so apologies to Berg.
Well, also, know that Berg was the most vocal in our office about his thoughts on this finale. I'll let him share those should he choose to.
Well, here, let me share them with you because they were good, and I almost put them into the script to begin with.
I want to know what saucy means.
Here was what Berg had to say. Well, I don't know what the YouTube chat.
Oh, I
YouTube,
see.
calm down. Here's what Burke had to say. I think he makes a good point here. I think the acting across the board has been good to great. And I think I agree. Like Bella Ramsey, I think Ellie is really hard to cast.
Yes.
And I understand why they cast Bella Ramsey for season 1 of this show. Bella Ramsey, they had just been great on Game of Thrones as this like young, quippy, tough, but still tough, but like gonna cuss you out young girl. Berg slacks me. Here we go. And that's perfect for Ellie in season 1. And I feel for Bella Ramsey because they don't have control over who they are and what they're like. And people, like I'm about to do right now, are talking about them on the internet, about their body and shit like that.
Don't do that.
And like that's unfair. And I wish people wouldn't talk about that because that's not their fault.
Yeah,
but like the Ellie in season 2 or in game 2, I just don't think fits that actor as well. And perfect casting for season 1. And I think just like not quite what we, how do I say this? Because like, again, I think most of it comes down to the writing.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to put any criticism really on Bella because I think they do a terrific job. And I think that they did do a great job with what they were given in the season.
But all the people who collaborated to make that character in season 2, something didn't
quite work.
Yeah.
And so Berg says, I think the acting across the board has been good to great. I think the worst criticism you can give any actor on the show is that the performance isn't particularly memorable, but also I don't need every council member to be so quirky that they stand out. Even lines I don't like, Ellie's, I'm gonna be a dad, Joel saying, oh yeah, this is something we haven't talked about, that they definitely would have found a cure. That wasn't something that Joel even fucking knows. How could he know? Were well handled by the cast, right? We agree. All this stuff has been acted well. And then Berg went on to say, I've seen a lot of chatter online about people talking about how the structure of the second game doesn't really work for TV. Broadly, I agree, though it would have been though, I think it would have been better shot if this season was strict about telling the story from Ellie's point of view, as the game had been. As is, I think they got cold feet, wound up including some scenes that they like, right? Like the WLF cold opens are good, but they break POV. That remove the viewer from Ellie's perspective, but not quite far enough to go omniscient through this, enough to include Abby. So I think Berg is spot on. If we had gotten the season that was just the like Ellie revenge season, without all this kind of outside noise that you're curious about, that is kind of working better than some of the other stuff, maybe that works. Or to Gina's point, you got to combine them. But to do a half step doesn't work.
Can you imagine a version of the show that is more streamlined, where we keep even strict to like Ellie and you know, Joel, Dina, whatever, their point of view, and like we get so much less WLF and so much less Seraphites. So when the first time you see one of them is Joel like saving Abby, and then you're in a chateau, and who are these people? Murder, whoa, maybe you get the hospital flashback, maybe you don't need it. And then like you arrive in Seattle, you see these people killing each other, and you don't know why. That, I think, is a little cooler.
Maybe.
I think. And then maybe you slowly figure it out, but like we spend a lot of time with both the Seraphites and the WLFs, and like them together, separate from the Ellie, Dina coalition. And like, did it add to the tension, or?
I mean, I think that the only argument you can make is that it might add to season 3. Maybe season 3 is a better season because they've laid some of this groundwork.
I mean, that's that's some classic showrunner apologism there, John. Just give us 7 seasons and then treat it in the whole.
I know, some people do say that. Like, don't judge a season of TV until the whole show.
No,
is done,
we're going to judge every season. We're going to judge every episode, because goddammit, you're giving them to us piecemeal.
That's right.
Okay. What are the other thoughts?
Well, there's 2 more things that I want to talk about before we do have to wrap it up. The endings. Right, we get this. I mean, full spoilers. Obviously, you've been here the whole time. Jesse gets shot
through the cheek. Through his beautiful cheek.
I mean, at least it's fast. At least it's fast.
He's done so. Who knows if someone got grazed behind it, like the bullet that Owen took through the throat and then hit
and ruined a perfectly good locker.
That bullet killed 3 people. It killed 4 people. It killed Mel's baby, Owen, and that locker.
And maybe there was a nerd stuck in that locker.
We don't know. So this big cliffhanger at the end where Abby kind of pulls a trigger on a black screen. How did you guys feel about that?
I mean, it was interesting. Eric pointed out in the breakdown that's already live on the Rockstars that like there is a gun sound effect with that blackout. So like to denote that Ellie has already thrown her gun.
And the last shot, I believe, was Abby with the gun pointed at Ellie.
You wasted it. Now, Tommy's on the ground, still alive. Jesse, we assume, is dead.
And if I told you there was a 4th person in that room, how would you feel?
Ooh, I would be intrigued. Is there? Possibly. But I mean, my thinking too is like, well, why would Abby leave either of these people alive? Like, if she's gonna kill Ellie, she will also kill Tommy.
Yeah.
Right? So like anything, it's kind of like Owen's logic was sound when he said to Mel, she's gonna kill us both when we tell her where Abby is, right? Like, Ellie should be using the same logic here. You're both gonna die, so you might as well lunge or do whatever. Have a shootout is your best chance. So that's what I kind of thought. And I know I did see Eric in the spoiler section of his breakdown mentioned what happens in the game at that moment. Yeah. So I know that. I mean, I guess we could say that now. Or she shoots Tommy in that moment. Doesn't kill him. She thinks she's killing him. He survives.
That's in the game. We have no idea.
We don't know how the show will treat it, but yes. And Ellie does get away in that moment, right?
We'll put a little for the VOD, a little spoiler.
She does, right?
Yes.
And they both live to fight another day.
You could say.
All 3 of those people survive.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you. And this is again now we're in game or season 3 spoilers, game 2 spoilers. Like, how do you do this cliffhanger where Abby points a gun at Ellie, and then it cuts to black and you hear a gunshot? But I believe in the game that shot doesn't get fired.
It does not. You don't hear it in the game. In the game, it cuts to black.
So like, there's no moment, and again, maybe they changed this for season 3. There's no moment in the game where Ellie ever gets shot at by Abby in that room, right? So like that, I think is why a lot of game players are like, that's fucked up. to like leave it on a cliffhanger where you think Ellie is getting shot or shot at or whatever, and that is presumably not going to happen in season 3.
Yeah, I do think that it would have been better to just cut to black and then see Abby wake up, which is how it is in the game. This seems like even more forced, like cliffhangeriness. Like,
well, and what's fascinating too is that like Tommy gets shot at this midpoint in the game, and you think he's dead. So you think Jesse and Tommy get killed, and then it cuts to Abby's perspective. Right?
Well,
is that not a better cliffhanger anyways?
Yes. How much is the show going to potentially blue ball us if, full Rashomon style, we spend all of season 3 working through these days with Abby, and we only find out what happens in that theater lobby
that's what's gonna
at the end of season 3.
That's 100% what's gonna
yeah,
happen.
I think that is what's going to happen. Also, maybe I would argue that like maybe the show hasn't made us care about Tommy enough.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if that's a good enough cliffhanger, because if you shoot Tommy and it's like, the cliffhanger is like, is he dead or is he not? Like, I would be like, do I care?
Agreed.
I don't know if I care.
Seth has got better characterization in season 2 than Tommy has.
I mean, like,
who again, his entire character is really good dad, good brother, solid guy, who I guess is an expert marksman.
Yeah,
but that's it. There's no other character
seen
there.
him bonding with any of the other characters. So even to Ellie, it's like, oh great, this is another death on her conscience. But it's not like, oh, my replacement father figure, like you're dying. It's just, it would just sort of be. So I think that was the motivation behind the writing of like, put in a gunshot, so it's like more of a cliffhanger. But yeah, I agree that it's if they end up not actually shooting Ellie, it's a little bit of like a cheat to make us wait for it and be like, okay, here's what actually happened. Now that you've sat through like 2.5 years and 7 more episodes.
And then is all of season 4 just Tommy's point of view while he's in Seattle?
And then they'll do season 5 of Joel from the grave.
It's like one of the clickers. It's one of the clickers. He's like, here's what happened from my point of view. And he's just like sniffing flowers, and someone comes up and shoots his friends, and he's like, I would watch that season. Let me write that season.
We've got a great television writer right here. Just let Gina write the spin-off season. Okay, so we go from that cliffhanger to sort of a pseudo new cliffhanger, which is they kind of give you the tag of Seattle day one, but from Abby's perspective. I saw someone in the chat mention they sort of like video game character her out there,
right.
Like from a video game POV. She's sort of like looks out at the WLF headquarters that is sort of they've built within this Seahawks stadium there in Seattle, which I think is like a very cool set piece. And then kind of give us like the see you in 2.5 years, we're going to do it all over again. How did you feel about that?
I didn't mind it. I was kind of intrigued. I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't mind. I'm interested in this character. I'm still interested in the WLFs, and I want to learn more about them and how their world works. I kind of wish the image was not just this stadium image, but like maybe hint at what the actual plot of Abby will be in season 3, like a challenge she's facing or whatever. Maybe could I get a reference to the Legion of Boom or other Seattle Seahawk? No, actually they didn't exist.
Just has like a funny...
No, in this universe there was no Beast Mode. There was no Legion of Boom.
He's been acting now.
But those are years that post Cordyceps, so we never get that.
Well, we get
Clicker. This is a Seattle pre-Pete Carroll, I believe, would be that they never even got that. USC still. So I mean, maybe it's a Matt Hasselbeck was all they had when the Cordyceps hit. I have to Google what the like 2002 or whatever the year was Seattle Seahawks were like. But yeah, it's interesting. Could it have been a little bit more interesting? Sure. But like, I'm kind of like, I want to see what that world's like. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about season 3. We just kind of took apart the writing and the behind the scenes work from this season. I hope that they take these criticisms to heart and try to fix whatever is broken for people for this season. Abby's story in the second part of the second game, which will be season 3, is very compelling and very well done and very good.
Hell yeah.
I know there's in the game there's a lot of people who are like Abby haters because of what she did to Joel. I don't think that that's so true for people who are watching this TV show. Because of the kind of reveal of like, this is why Abby's doing this.
They've gone out of their way to try to make her more sympathetic.
Right.
So I'm hoping that people, and I'm hoping the show does a good job with season 3. I'm hoping people come back for season 3 because I do think it is a very good story.
Yeah. And I think like it'll be interesting, one of many reasons we liked the Joel character and characters across fiction is like, we are also, regardless of if they have shades of gray and might do some bad stuff, like characters that are really good at their job, we tend to like more. Don Draper, Breaking Bad, right? Like there's a lot of shows that are kind of about bad people, but because they're so good at what they do. Succession, you kind of are more on their side. Tony Soprano, you are more on their side than you should be. And like, I'm interested to see like, you know, Abby be like a badass in season 3, and that earn even more of our interest and respect, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, we'll be back in 2.5 years to talk about season 3 of The Last of Us. Thanks for sticking with us for the full season this year. Hey,
final Snore or Bore?
Oh, final Snore or Bore.
Spore
Funguy.
Funguy or Spore Bore.
You gotta give it to Jesse for a fun guy. I mean,
really, I think he's your number one.
I might go Spore Bore for old Jesse.
Oh man, poor guy. I wish we got more.
Isaac will forever be my fun guy. Just give Jeffrey Wright 90 seconds of screen time.
Yeah, talk about someone who's like consistently good at his job.
Even just like again, the image of just him on the boat being like, "It's all loaded. Let's roll out."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, dog."
Yeah. I'm gonna give the fun guy to Grover, because if you haven't read The Monster at the End of the Book, he realizes he is the monster at the end of the book, so he makes this realization before the characters which a little on the nose to include this, of someone who's like, I'm afraid of this monster. Oh, I'm the monster in a show where
he's not afraid anymore.
And then he's not afraid because he's like, oh, I was the monster the whole time. But Grover got there before Ellie ever will. Before Ellie realizes she's the monster at the end of this book. Yeah. Grover got there.
You might be right. Wow, that is really on the nose writing. I didn't pick that up. Holy shit! I'm not a Muppets person. I guess my Spore Snore. That dumb little kid. What does that dumb little kid do? Oh yeah, just gutter. Like what?
I know. Also,
what the fuck
does that
like
little
kid? 6-year-old kid.
Does that little kid ever say "Let him live"?
Like right?
Does that little kid
first
just,
of all,
kill 'em
why
all?
are we going to the little kids
also,
for the thumbs up or the thumbs down? That's crazy.
Is he the final say?
Yeah,
that logic was a little weird because Ellie literally said to the little kid, "You know, I'm not a WLF. Tell him." How is he supposed to?
Yeah.
You look like you're dressed the same as the
tactical
WLF.
gear on.
Just because you don't have that hat on.
She just crawled up on the water and now she thinks they're like best friends. This kid owes her nothing.
Literally, she crashed on one side of the island the exact same time all the other WLFs are crashed on the other side of the
also,
island.
to the Seraphites, first of all, why do you have a random noose hung up in the woods?
What's with that?
What's with that?
Now,
you don't know that this girl is going to wash up on shore?
That's a purpose-built noose.
Crazy.
That noose is
That's
there for a
crazy.
reason.
They were just standing around hoping, oh, I hope someone washes up again.
No, I think this is an emergency candy bar in your purse situation. I think this is like, they're like, listen, we never know where or when we're going to hang someone.
So that's
my... be prepared.
It's a real Blair Witch. You can't walk past 10 trees without seeing a noose.
I don't agree with this take. That's insane. That's too much rope. Second of all...
Well, one thing you don't know, the Seraphites really into autoerotic asphyxiation. It comes in handy for business or pleasure.
Which rope are we stringing them up at?
I like the nylon rope as opposed to the... So that's my problem number one. My problem number two is I get that they are trying to teach their kids the realities of the world that they're living in. But maybe just like don't bring the young kid to the lynching and then ask them if we should gut the adult.
You can't ascribe logic to cult kids.
Hey, you're right.
It's not logical. They are in a cult that thinks that like this was all done for a reason to like cleanse humanity.
Hey, you're not wrong.
So
I still think you can protect the kids a little bit.
But it's not because they're like trying to like raise them in like the reality of the world. They're like, yes, this was
feel
done
their
to
love.
us.
I mean, in their brain, they are protecting the kids by forcing them to witness the harshness.
I mean, they scar their kids, so they think this is all cults.
Why so serious?
Well, in between now and season 3, we're all gonna join a different cult. I don't know which one, but we'll let you know in 2.5 years. That's it for us today. Make sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel here on YouTube and give us a follow on Twitch where we do these videos live. Follow Breakroom NR on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. See you later. Bye.